communication?
Communication's everywhere.
Communication is talking or any kind of language you can do.
Different kind of stories.
Language.
Drawing is another way to communicate.
There's like sign language, facial expressions.
There are a lot of ways you can communicate, and one of my favorite ones is Morse code.
You can do Morse code with a light, just like flash it on and off. So basically, Morse code can travel a long distance.
Sound is communication.
Making pictures.
Communication is facial expressions. Whales communicate with echolocation. Dolphins too.
Waves.
It could be like writing it, texting it. There's really a lots of different ways.
Painting, math, sign language.
Writing and illustrating. I don't know how to pronounce it right.
Communication is how people or animals interact with each other.
Communication, it can be in different forms. One way of communication is how I'm doing it right now, by talking. But usually when you communicate, you express like how you feel. Some ways people express themselves are through speech, but other ways, maybe like writing, and then like movie making, filmmaking, songwriting, things like that.
Well, I do sing at lunchtime, and that's another language of communication.
They could also just talk in person too.
If you snap, you can basically tell if someone's proud. If you clap, you can tell that they're proud of you, you know?
Well, basically we do communication every day because writing and reading is basically all a form of communication. And most communications is a code, like writing is a code in fact. This might not occur to you, but it is a code, and talking too. It could really be anything that you're communicating, like Morse code and talking, Spanish, Finnish, Japanese.
Math, you can understand math. If I write something down, writing is a language, math.
You can say it without even writing it down, too. Or you can communicate by writing. Or you can communicate by pictures.
You can communicate ways you feel, and you can communicate your ideas.
It can be different cultures. Like different people communicate different ways. Like for example, the Tuareg in the Sahara Desert, they live there, they have different languages, but they also have different traditions, and that's a way of communication also. I've learned more about waves. If you were trying to call someone and there were no radio waves anywhere, and there were like no radio waves anywhere, then you wouldn't be able to call someone.
Frequency is the amount of waves given the amount of time.
If you didn't have sound waves, no one could hear you.
We're making a puppet play, and that's a way of communicating. So, can I talk about the ear? First, there is the anvil, and then it sends it through the ear canal. Then the ear canal sends it all the way to the eardrum, and the eardrum like vibrates, and then it hits all the other parts.
I've learned how to make a story. I've learned how to make a puppet.
If you work together, then everything will go right and not wrong.
Well, I've learned that you can communicate in a lot of different ways, not only using your voice. You can also communicate using like Morse code and different masks for different tribes. For the Kwakiutl, they wear masks, so they can communicate like the difference between human and nature. So sometimes there's an animal mask which opens up to turn into a human, and they want to do that to show the connection between animal and human.
I learned about puppets and how they communicate, because you can do things with puppets that humans can't do. where if you do puppets, people can actually visualize it because it's actually showing you what it would look like.
Like, you exaggerate with them. Like, you're just gonna say, oh, look over there, there's an ant on the floor, for example. And in a puppet, there would be, oh, look, there's an ant. Like, exaggerate more so the people understand what you're trying to communicate.
We use phonics for writing and making stories. I never had a chance to make a story. I only had time to say a story, but I never had time to write it down. Because I used to not know any sounds, digraphs, or any of that. I only used to know, like, I would be so confused of which is which, because I haven't learned digraphs yet.
Because if you wouldn't communicate, you would just be standing around like this all the time.
People won't be able to understand you, and also we won't know about that much about each other, and this whole world would probably be like just blank.
If we didn't know how to communicate, nothing would happen. Like if you want to go to the park, you need to have like a discussion. Like if the other people want to go.
Without communication, we wouldn't communicate. Like if I spoke a different language than you, I wouldn't be able to understand you.
Because if we can't communicate, no one understands what we want.
It's important to tell stories, because some stories are about you. But because if you want to talk about yourself, why not just write down a story? If there's something that you really like and you really want to explain to the world, then why not just write it down? Pictures, writing, or just say it.
I'm making a story about a little kid named Charlie Green. It was a lot of progress. I had to make the sun. I had to make the slide. I had to make lots of other things.
Then we could add more detail and make it our own. Monkey bars, swings, slides, glass.
No civilization on this earth would be created without communication. Humans couldn't learn because there's no schools, because the teachers can't communicate to the children, so the kids can't get jobs because jobs were not invented because they couldn't have them, because they couldn't communicate to create the jobs. So communication is one of the most important things ever.
The end.